whether we're talking about a teacher or a philosopher, the responsibility of the philosopher is to encourage and challenge people to, number one, think critically, and also to pursue truth. Let us give critical thought and critical examination to the information that we're bombarded with on a daily basis. That's really the one thing, that critical thinking, that's actually something that can get you in trouble. If you think about individuals like Socrates and individuals like Martin Luther King Jr. and other individuals who were thinkers, okay, and who didn't just go along with the status quo, or they didn't simply believe whatever they were told. And then on top of that, they were not afraid to speak truth to power.
All right, so I'll go ahead and introduce us.
Sure.
Hey, so welcome everybody to another episode of the Becoming Human podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Darryl Howard. He's a college professor, both at a university and a two-year school. Full disclosure, I was a student of his in his a philosophy course. And that's how I know him, and I thought he'd be a great guest to have on for today's conversation. So, Dr. Howard, thank you for being here.
Stephen, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. And so we have a set of questions today that we want to go through because today is very time sensitive due to Dr. Howard's schedule. But I do want to set the stage for our conversation, just so you have some context on how we ended up here. So, Dr. Howard, I participate in a lot of different groups. And these groups, we focus on solving some of humanity's problems. And when we're interacting in these groups, what tends to happen is once the conversation becomes a little too intense, there's this, what people call spiritual bypassing. I call it kind of maybe a cop-out sometimes, for lack of better words.
Okay.
But we're all one.
Sure.
We're the whole purpose of this is spiritual journey.
Sure.
And while I agree with that, if you look at something like hierarchy of needs,
sure,
if we want to jump into psychology for a second, if a person's physiological, social, emotional needs aren't being met, then the likelihood of them being self-realized is very slim to none. And so, fast forward, I walk into your classroom, and the first lesson that you give is how Abrahamic and Vedic, and some people may say Vedic, traditions are antithetical to one another.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And when I share that with friends of mine in the group, they're like, "No, see, that's the problem. We always talk about, we over focus on the differences, but you do so in a way that respects the differences."
Sure.
And I think that's so important. Just to set the stage, and just in case this conversation, some of the things get a little too intense for someone, I want to say to them what you say to us in class, which is,
right,
I'm not asking you to agree with me,
sure,
but I am asking you to try to understand.
Try to understand, exactly. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to, too often we seek to be understood, which is important, but I'm thinking about a book by Stephen Covey. I believe it was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
And I believe in it, he stated that before we seek to be understood, we should always seek instead to get an understanding.
Yes.
And so, the concept of understanding is really important. And to be honest, something that I did not mention in the course that you took, that I typically do mention, I always quote a Hebrew proverb that basically says, "In all thy getting, get an understanding." And so too often, that's really a major source of the contention and the conflict that exists in our world today.
Yeah.
Is that we spend so much time trying to be understood that we disregard the responsibility that we have to understand others. And I always pose a question also, and that is, do you have to subscribe to something in order to understand it? No, not at all, but understanding is important, because what understanding does is it gives us a frame of reference. Oftentimes, seeking to understand helps us to understand the intent of the other party, the other person, the other group. And the beautiful thing about understanding is that it it takes away any preconceived notions and misconceptions that we oftentimes have about others, especially other groups. Yes, in introducing my world religions course, which essentially is a comparative religions course. So as a comparative religions course, yeah, majority of the time I'm talking about the similarities between the different religious traditions.
Mm-hmm.
However, because I typically spend the bulk of the course highlighting the similarities. Yeah, I typically do start the course highlighting the differences
Yeah.
so that people can understand, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what makes each religious tradition unique.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I got a lot from that.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
I
thank you.
did.
Appreciate it.
And so,
Mhm.
moving, I think this is perfect to explore, what does it mean to be a teacher? Because I think that's a powerful
Mhm.
question in an age where everyone has a voice, but
Mhm.
not everyone's an actual teacher.
Yeah, yeah. What does it mean to be a teacher?
I know but
Yeah.
it's a lot of responsibility, and you're someone who shapes, people's perspectives.
Yeah. And I think really for me, I guess my personal philosophy of teaching, which consists of a number of components, a teacher is essentially one who equips others. And I think it's important that a good teacher uh, seeks to equip their students with truth, because with truth, that enables the teacher to fulfill what I think is their second responsibility, which is to equip the student to fulfill their human potential in life, if you would.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And so, in order to do that, it's important that we as teachers, in the case of philosophy, that we as philosophers equip our students with wisdom.
yeah,
Okay. And wisdom, which is first knowledge, yes, the right type of knowledge, but it's knowledge that serves the purpose of becoming applied knowledge.
hmm,
And it's then when our students can practically use the knowledge that they acquire, when they can make it practical,
yeah,
then that's when they become successful. That's when they're able to fulfill the purpose for their existence. And so I think that's a third responsibility of the teacher, which is to help the student to understand what is the purpose of their existence also. And
yeah,
those are the three things that I try to do. Present truth,
hmm,
okay, equip the student,
hmm,
and then number three, help the student to identify their purpose and the meaning of their existence.
yeah. And
Mhm.
I mean, I like that, and I definitely sense that intention or that energy from you when you
I
teach.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And so, what is it like, navigating the different personalities as you are, because you do teach in a very diverse classroom, and I
Mhm.
know that's one of the things you love most about
It is.
being in that classroom. And in the class, we have people from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you get a chance to gain some
Mm-hmm.
cultural experience
Mm-hmm.
in a formal setting that you
Mm-hmm.
normally wouldn't have access to
Sure.
unless you traveled. So
Sure.
how do you, what responsibility do you take navigating that?
I love it. I do. I mean, because, particularly here at this location at Dallas College, we're here at the North Lake campus. The North Lake campus sits in what is known as one of the most ethnically diverse zip codes
Yeah.
in the entire United States.
Mm-hmm.
The Las Colinas location, Irving, Texas, here in Irving, Texas. And I believe this zip code is tied with Dearborn, Michigan, and Ypsilanti, Michigan. Okay, and Dearborn is 10 minutes outside of my home of Detroit, for being the most ethnically diverse zip codes in the entire United States.
Yeah.
And so, I love that because it represents the world that we're a part of. It makes for rich and engaging conversations and discussions in the classroom. You've been there for a number of those discussions, to hear your classmates, students describe different traditions, beliefs, and practices,
Yeah.
associated with the religions of the world. It's just wonderful. I mean, because it makes it more rewarding when it's coming from them versus, it coming from me. Yeah, you do. You remember better. Yeah. And, but, and it's my way of also encouraging students to travel,
Yeah.
okay, to seek to learn and understand traditions, beliefs, and practices that are different from their own, in a respectful manner, and doing so does not threaten my convictions. You see what I'm saying? And but can actually enhance, whatever convictions, I may hold, and so that's what I try to encourage the students to do. I had the privilege of traveling for the first time when I was 17 years old. At that time, I joined the United States Air Force after high school, graduating from high school. And my first duty assignment was in the Philippines, in the Pacific. And man, that just changed my life, man. It really did. And little did I know that experience when I was 17, 18 years old, would come full circle. And now here I am decades later. And I'm a world religions professor and a philosophy and ethics professor, and so but not only that, but teaching in a diverse academic environment such as here at Dallas College. I love it. I do. I love it. Yeah.
It really is unique,
Yeah.
and that's definitely. I agree with you on all the points you just made. I remember my first time, or one of the first times I went to a different country. I had a chance to speak with. I was in Jordan, and we were working with the Jordanian army.
Yes.
Doing some training ops, and had a chance to stand on guard duty all night with a Jordanian soldier.
Conversation.
And he was educating me beyond belief.
Yes.
And these encounters with people tore down all of the preconceptions that I had about other parts of the world. And what you offer people in your setting is a little glimpse of that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I can relate to that. I had similar experiences just like that on numerous occasions. I was in law enforcement when I was in the Air Force. And so, there were numerous times in which, I'd be on duty, maybe all night or maybe all afternoon, and would be positioned there with a Philippine national who was a part of the Department of Defense, and so, we're doing the same job. And just the conversation is just rich, and then we would get, when duty was over, he would invite me over for breakfast the next morning, and just a wonderful, rich experience.
You can't prepare for it.
You cannot.
It's better when you can't prepare for it. In fact, we shouldn't even say anything, because now you may go with an expectation when it's so much more powerful.
It is.
When you don't know what you're walking into.
It's natural, it's organic, but the beautiful thing about it is that, it's really a major reason why my father encouraged me to join the military. After graduating from high school, I didn't want to go to college. I'm from Detroit, and so, he was discouraging me from getting a job in the plants in the auto industry, because that was transitioning to automation. And so he encouraged me to join the Air Force. And man, that changed my life, because it definitely caused me to broaden my horizons, okay, and re-examine my inventory of ideas about life. You know what I'm saying? So I highly recommend it really to any and everyone, if you haven't done so, to travel the world, man. Just travel, see the world, and it'll change your life for the better. Yeah, it would.
It does, and it has. And it's cool we share that in common.
Absolutely.
So moving forward, and say this loaded word, polarized, polarized world.
Okay.
What can philosophers or teachers in general do to help students see differences as dialogue rather than conflict? And I like that question, and I think it's an important question, because if we look at the development of, say, Western civilization, you will see that philosophers were at the heart of the
Correct.
ideals.
Absolutely.
That the civilizations tried to build themselves on, whether oftentimes falling short.
Correct.
But these were the ideals that we were aiming for, that we still are aiming for. And that gets lost in all of our economic drive and social drive. We forget where those ideals actually come from.
Sure.
And so you're someone who's positioning yourself to have that influence on people. So, like, what role does a philosopher
play
in this polarization?
I think the number one responsibility, it kind of also goes back to being a teacher, but whether we're talking about a teacher or a philosopher, the responsibility of the philosopher is to encourage and challenge people to, number one, think critically, okay, and also to pursue truth.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's pursue truth, and in our pursuit of truth, let us give critical thought and critical examination to the information that we're bombarded with on a daily basis. Okay. And believe it or not, although that may sound simple, that's really the one thing, that critical thinking, that's actually something that can get you in trouble. Okay, if you think about individuals like Socrates and individuals like Martin Luther King Jr. and other individuals who were thinkers, okay, and who didn't just go along with the status quo, or they didn't simply believe whatever they were told. And then on top of that, they were not afraid to speak truth to power. Okay. Thinking can get you in trouble. Okay. But it's interesting because we live in a world in which too many of the powers that be, they just want to present information to us, and they just want us to simply swallow the information, okay, without asking any questions. And that's not how we're to live as human beings.
Yeah, and there's almost like this tug of war between the ideals and desire. And it almost seems like what plagues civilizations is the desire tends to always be a little bit ahead of the ideal. And I guess a trick would be cultivating enough minds, enough bodies to balance our desires with ideals. I just threw that out there.
So when you say desires, you're talking about personal desires?
I mean,
are you saying materialistic desires?
Materialistic, because personal sometimes gets a negative connotation. It doesn't have to be negative.
Right.
But yeah, probably more materialistic.
Yeah.
Or superficial.
That's
a better term.
That can be very dangerous. Yes, when we allow our appetites, if you would, desires / appetites to lead us and to guide us and to even distract us from truth. Okay, now we're in trouble. Okay, now we're in trouble. Because truth, it requires and demands responsibility.
Yes.
And so when we're talking about truth, we're talking also about doing what is right. And once again, truth oftentimes is not popular, and doing right oftentimes is not popular either. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but we want to acquire truth, not just for the sake of gaining knowledge, but we then want to take that truth, and then we want to use it to shape the character of the individual, to build the character of the individual, so that the individual, the human being, is the best version of themselves.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that they're compassionate and considerate and ethical and moral, and have a concern not only for their own well-being, that they have a concern not for their well-being only, but they have a concern for the well-being of their neighbor as well. You see what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, you know, when we focus on our desires and appetites only, just trying to satisfy them, and when we make that our top priority to the exclusion of anything else, you know, then what we end up is with a world where, for example, like in the current situation that we're in right now, you know, at the time, you know, as we speak today, we're in the midst of, I believe it's day 33 or day 34 of a government shutdown, for example. Okay. And it's interesting because the politicians, they've been getting paid for the past 3-4 weeks. Okay. But yet we have federal workers, okay, who, if they've not been fired, they haven't gotten a paycheck. You know, we're into a second month of federal workers not getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
We just started the second month, should I say, you know.
Mhm.
And then effective a couple days ago, 42 million Americans have lost their food assistance benefits, their SNAP benefits, okay? And so what's that saying is that we're living in a society right now, in a world right now, in a nation right now, unfortunately, you know, where care and concern for the well-being of others is low on the totem pole. It really is. It's low on the priority list. And human beings instead, you know, are being used as pawns, unfortunately, you know.
It made me think about this this not a quote, but it was a lecture. I'm trying to remember where you hear so much stuff sometimes you can.
I get it. Yeah,
But
I get it.
the person giving the lecture was saying how they were doing charity work in another country, and in that country, all of the people in this village, they were terrified that that people who had wealth were going to come and
Sure.
displace them from their land.
Sure.
And he said he got done doing the charity work.
Yep.
And he went back home to LA.
Yep.
And went into a gated community full of cameras and guards.
Yeah.
And all of the people there were afraid that people who didn't have anything was going to
Yep.
come and take
Yep.
what they had.
Yep.
So I hear this underlying theme of fear.
Sure.
That gets fed by appetite.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
And,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
we miss the whole part, and we act inhumane to one another.
Right.
And I'm curious to know, you know, because I know this is affecting a lot of people, and hopefully conversations like this could help impart some wisdom on some folks, you know, like we're talking about. What do you know? We're exploring like a rite of passage. I gave you the book, you know, rite of passage. I'm curious to know, like, what would a rite of passage look like for humanity, for you to mature from what you just spoke about?
Well, once again, you know, going back to that aspect of,
if you could construct one, you know.
Well, it's essentially understanding and recognizing the value of education. So, you know, definitely we have to start there. That essentially understanding that education, you know, especially for marginalized peoples and just for the human being in general, okay, true education it's a great equalizer, meaning that, you know, it provides the individual, the human being, what's necessary for success in life. Okay. I believe the adage says that, I'm trying to remember this adage. Essentially, it says that for the first, I believe it's for the first 6 years of your life, you're learning to read, but for the rest of your life, you're reading to learn. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that child is never taught, never provided the basic, a good foundation, a good reading foundation, then guess what? They're going to struggle for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we live in a society in which all children are not ensured a quality education, okay, see, then that starts, that starts the disruption that we currently see in our society today, okay, in which you have in which a society which is made up of the haves versus the have-nots. Okay. And that starts, with education.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why it's so important for us, to place a priority on education. Okay. Unfortunately, not all communities place a priority on education, unfortunately,
Yeah.
And too often those who are a part of our community, the African American community, unfortunately, suffer from a lack of true education, quality education, good education, and then we see the ripple effect of it, as boys become men and girls become women. We see the ripple effect in terms of the bad decisions that are made.
Yes. Yes.
And so that education, in terms of recognizing the value of education, and that value, the education is valuable because also good education should also teach us how to pursue truth, but not only pursue truth, but also how to distinguish between truth versus a lie.
Yes.
That's
so powerful.
And so I guess what I'm also trying to say is that first we need to recognize the value of education, and then secondly, once we recognize the value of education, we need to understand how it teaches us, how it provides us with a foundation for critical thinking.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And that's a major problem in our world today, that a lot of individuals don't know how to think, and we see it, just in the decisions that are being made, and the millions of people who, despite being harmed and devastated by the decisions that are being made, the millions of people who support the terrible decisions that are being made. So, because they don't engage in critical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what's the clickbait life?
Yeah.
You
Right.
get dragged.
Yeah.
And
Right.
whoever has the catchiest presentation.
That's it. That's
which is a stressful way to live.
Right. Right. Right.
And to further explore your point,
Right.
I know people, I have lots of friends and relatives who work in education at various levels, and they all say something similar, which is it's really difficult to get parents to prioritize education.
Sure.
And I feel because we prioritize money too high.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where
Absolutely.
there's an infinite amount of ways to get money.
Sure.
So
Sure.
you understanding how to be decent isn't top priority.
Right. It goes back to that. Right. It feeds that appetite / desire. It goes back to that. But another example of what you're talking about is rather than prioritizing education, unfortunately, we prioritize sports. And I'm not slamming sports. I like sports. You see what I'm saying? But I believe that our athletes, for example, when I say, our athletes, I'm talking about our athletes, okay? That I believe that our athletes, yes, prioritize sports and athletics. Don't get me wrong, but don't just see yourself as just an athlete. See yourself as a scholar athlete. Okay. In other words, as an athlete, you do more than just dribble a ball or catch a ball or hit a ball or whatever. No, because you're not always on that field. You're not always on that court.
Your ability.
Your intellect, it definitely precedes your ability. Absolutely. Okay. And so I challenge, the athletes. Listen, okay, you need to understand that education and learning, okay, and what's in these books is actually going to improve your game on the court, okay? And that's what has to be understood about athletics, is that your best athletes, they have physical skill, don't get me wrong, okay? But they have a fundamental, keen understanding about the game, the fundamentals of the game, And what does that require? That requires sharp intellect.
It does.
Yeah, that requires critical thinking.
It does.
That requires problem-solving skills. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that certainly translates.
Yeah.
They obviously can do it at a high level.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you add to that as well. Then when they're not on the field, how are they handling their personal responsibilities, like their money, for example, their economics? Okay. Well, guess what? That's where education comes in. You see what I'm saying? You know, but if you've not prioritized education, or if you've devalued or diminished the value of education, okay, then guess what? You may spend what, 10, 15 years in professional sports, having earned millions of dollars, but only to retire and end up sleeping in your car. Where does that stem from? That stems from a low value of education.
And so in the heart of that, in the spirit of that, you know, this is a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
Personal challenges, you know, have you faced, you know, potentially in your faith, having to explore all of these different cultures and religions? Have you come to any forks in the road where, you know, some things were uncertain for you about your own faith and your beliefs, and how did you maybe find yourself back centered?
Probably the biggest personal challenge has really been the criticisms from those who are a part of my religious community, if you would, because I have a seminary background. I have a seminary degree, excuse me. And I had one brother, I saw him in a restaurant one time, and he asked me, what am I doing? And I told him, I said, yeah, man, I'm a college professor. What do you teach? And I told him what I taught and teach, you know, philosophy, world religions, and ethics, you know. And his response to me was, man, you went to seminary all them years, man. That's a wasted degree, you know.
Yeah.
And so you know, those are really the gist of the types of challenges that I've experienced. They don't bother me, you know.
No dark night of the soul moment?
No, no. And I'm thankful to my faith for that.
Yeah.
Because I can honestly say, you know, that by God's grace, I've studied my faith. I don't just study my faith, but I live according to my faith, you know. Yeah. And so I think that's what's important, you know. And even when I see or come across, you know, what appears to be certain contradictions, you know, that's where that critical thinking and that research, and that's where that comes in, you know, along with prayer also, you know. Yeah. But no, not really any dark moment. I'm trying to sit here and think. You know what? There has been a moment, more very recently, as a matter of fact. I just finished a PhD. It's actually my second doctorate. PhD. This was last year. I just finished it. And I was doing some research on a particular individual. And there were some things that I discovered about this person's life that kind of shook me for a couple of weeks. I was like, dang, I did not know. Wow, man, you know. And so that probably may be the most recent dark moment, probably, if not the only dark moment I can think of, if you would. But then even with that, I was able to rely upon my faith to help me to bounce back and recover from that, if you would. Yeah. You know, and that's the great thing about faith, is that no matter what faith you're studying, you know, or you subscribe to, you know, at least definitely in the faith that I live and that I practice and subscribe to, we see human beings who are fallen individuals, who are fallible, they're imperfect individuals, they're flawed, you know. And that's the beauty of faith, is that flawed individuals being used by a mighty God to do amazing things, you know. And so that's, you know, that's probably the part of faith that I appreciate and value the most, you know, being a flawed individual, you know. So.
And I would say you made me think of a couple of things. You know, my mother-in-law, she went to seminary, and she shared with me on numerous occasions how people's faith would get challenged so deeply because you get access to religious texts.
Yeah.
That the average public
Yeah.
that you won't normally get in church.
Yeah.
And you get context
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if you don't have a solid grasp of
Mm-hmm.
what faith is,
Sure.
then
Sure.
you'll get wrapped up in the religion,
Yeah.
and it can really.
Well, and I've had classmates, matter of fact, in all the years that I've been studying, I've had classmates who had through their research and through information that they've come across, I've had a couple who have denied the faith, left the faith,
Yeah.
and I'm like, nah, I'm not about to do that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if it wasn't for my faith, I wouldn't be here now, so.
And that's beautiful. And I think it was
Mhm.
Ramdas. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
Mhm.
I think he said something along the lines that, uh, you know, religion is a method,
Mhm.
and any good method, if
Mhm.
taught properly and
Mhm.
practiced properly,
Mhm.
should ultimately free you.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that kind of.
And Jesus said that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, shall make you free.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's why we should be in the pursuit of truth, And it's not always going to come easy. And so that's the beautiful thing about studying and research and
Yeah.
understanding that this is a journey that we're on, and part of that as well means that you know sometimes on this journey, hey man, the walk will be smooth and perfect, and sometimes, man, we'll fall off, you know what I'm saying? But what do we do when we fall down? Hey man, we get back up, dust ourselves off, and we keep moving forward.
So here's a great question to your point.
Mhm.
Is very simple one, but
Mhm.
it speaks to well, what does faith mean to you?
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
It's a simple one, but a tough one.
Yeah, well, I mean, so from my religious tradition, which is Christianity, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. Okay. So, that's, what would be considered a biblical definition, if it's used in that instance, if you would, but, if it's used probably in a more as a verb, if you would, then, a person's faith is can be a person's either relationship with God or connection with God or relationship with God or connection with God, if you would, so that's that person's faith versus this person's faith, and so and so I guess I would say that faith, is probably a simple way of putting it is believing without seeing. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Or faith can also be seeing seeing what others uh, seeing what others are unable to see, possibly. If that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That meaning that once we enter into a relationship with God, then he allows us to see things as they really are, if you would, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yep.
how do you cultivate peace and clarity in your life? And I know prayer will probably be not putting anything,
Yeah.
answering the question for you.
Yeah.
But in what other ways
Yeah.
might you?
For me, reading scripture, so reading the Word of God, the Holy Bible. So reading scripture, of course, prayer, hanging out with other people of faith, especially strong people who are strong in their faith, and then also pursuing truth. So, in addition to reading the Bible, but reading good books, listening to good messages, and that's what's really important, I just mentioned a moment ago this social political climate that we're in right now. And man, when you talk to to those who are strong in the faith, the older saints, they'd be like, oh boy, what's wrong with you? And it's like, man, you haven't watched the news? And they say, oh man, we done made it through that before, man. So we survived Reagan, and we survived Nixon, and older man, he was just telling me this a couple of days ago,
Some perspective.
yeah, exactly, and so what that does is that encourages us in our faith. You see what I'm saying? That encourages us, in our sense of perseverance. It helps us to stay encouraged, even in turbulent times, And so all of that is just really important, But then also, like I said, making sure that we're mindful and intentional about what we read, the books we read, the music we listen to, The word teaches us to guard our heart with all diligence, because out of it springs the issues of life. So I can't just feed on anything mentally, but I got to feed on that which is going to keep me built up in my faith, keep me encouraged.
Yeah. It was one of the last questions I have for you. Is this one just came to me, when you're talking about how you read scripture every day as a source of comfort and peace. I'm wondering, how do you dissect scripture? I know in class you gave us an example of how we went through the 10 Commandments, and we dissected them with cultural context, with historical context.
Sure.
You approached it from several different angles, which gave the 10 Commandments completely new meaning than most people would associate them with. And I'm sure you maybe got some of that in seminary too.
Sure.
Is that how you?
Yeah. Checking out the, in terms of studying it, studying it from what, we call it from a historical, grammatical, contextual analysis of scripture. You see what I'm saying? So, from historical, meaning, okay, why was this passage written? To whom was it written? What was the occasion for, or the purpose for which it was written? Then from a grammatical, okay, well, what language was this written in? And let's get an understanding about the grammar. So not only the language, but then also the grammatical usage of, of
how change the meaning.
Yeah, it does. Well, what it does change the meaning, and it gives us a more accurate meaning.
Yes.
See, going back to that pursuit of truth, because see, oftentimes the meanings that we have applied to many scriptures are more cultural.
Yes.
Okay. With no understanding about the historical context, no understanding about the grammatical context, embedded within those scriptures, And too often what we do is we apply meaning to scriptures as opposed to drawing meaning from scriptures. We call that the difference between eisegesis versus exegesis. Okay. Yes. Iso unto, exo means out of. We're supposed to draw the meaning from the text and apply it to our lives. And it's not, and that's not only the case when it comes to scripture, but any book we read. When we read a book, okay, we don't add meaning to what's written in the book. No, we draw meaning and understanding from what's written. At least we should, And so, that's essentially how, But see, that once again, that goes back to being in search of that truth. Education, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I that came to me because I like you, I like to really dig when I'm learning.
Right.
Especially when I love diving into all of the different religions, cultures also. Sure. And, one of the things I'm sure people are going to want to know, like, how you teach the 10 Commandments. So maybe we'll have to do that some other time. Okay. I'm sure they're probably curious. But, like, books from all around the world. I was introduced to a book that my mother-in-law was actually introduced to in seminary. And it was called Prayers of the Cosmos. And it was Jesus's words translated from Aramaic to Greek to English.
Sure.
And the author also went through
Mm-hmm.
everything we just talked about,
Mm-hmm.
cultural context,
Right.
the grammar,
Right.
the lingo,
Mm.
and the meaning of those words totally different than what I learned my whole life.
Sure.
Completely different.
Sure.
And it gave me uh, a new power, and I saw those teachings in a new light. But more importantly, it removed the fear aspect
Of course.
that's commonly associated with people who grew up in a Christian background.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And it's very powerful to be able
Right.
to have that
Yep.
that ability.
Yep.
And so I encourage people to
Yep.
learn to do that for themselves and not take my word for it,
Right.
not take
Sure.
Dr.
Sure.
Howard's word for it,
Sure.
but
Sure.
really dig and get an understanding of what,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
was being said. That's part of your superpower.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, that's a good way of putting it. You're absolutely right.
Um,
And it goes back to education, and it goes back to a fundamental skill that historically, at the start of this nation, our people were denied, and that is reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what advice would you give
Mm-hmm.
future teachers?
Mm-hmm.
And I won't even add the rest of that, and because everybody has the ability to teach now,
Mm-hmm.
but not everyone is going to put forth the effort to develop the skills to discern information and truth and really get context the
Mm-hmm.
way you may have gotten going through PhD or going through seminary.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice would you give to teachers, um, in this world today? The bedroom teachers, the scholastic teachers,
Mm-hmm.
as a philosopher.
Sure. Yeah. To pursue education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, so that means that, if an individual intends to teach others, study, put in the study, put in the time,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it may be, number one. And then number two, a good uh, teacher is first a good learner, a good student. And I think that's a problem with the culture that we're in right now, especially with social media and so many YouTubers or whatever, and everybody's trying to be an expert on this, and this. And when you look into their background and do some research on them, you discover, okay, they've never, you know, they've never even they don't even have any experience in what they're talking about, let alone degrees and training in what they're talking about. And so I think it's just really important just to, pay your dues, man. If you need to go to school and get some training, either training or education, then do that.
Mm-hmm.
See it as an investment. As a matter of fact, I always say, I've been saying this for years, and I probably need to write a book, give it this title. And that is, we have to stop seeing education as an interruption to our lives and start seeing it as a necessity for our lives, because too many people, they're in a hurry to, if they decide to come here, for example, or come to college or whatever, they come here, they're in a hurry to get here. And then when they get here, they're in a hurry to get out of here. And they end up missing
All of the
they miss, they so focused on the destination
mm-hmm.
till they miss the joy and the benefit of the entire journey, and it's like, nah, man, the true reward, to be honest, is really not so much in the destination. It's in the journey. Yeah, it's in the process, because what the journey and the process teaches you, it teaches you the value of the destination, so that when you achieve the destination or reach the destination, guess what? You can value and take care of the destination, you know what I'm saying? Versus squandering it.
You can, and if I may add
Mm-hmm.
something to that,
Mm-hmm.
is when you come to a classroom and you're in the classroom with a professor every day,
Mm-hmm.
and those professors care about the subject matter that they're teaching,
Mm-hmm.
you get something more than
Mm-hmm.
the what's in the book.
Sure.
Like you get this transmission of energy,
Mm-hmm.
of it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to put into words,
Mm-hmm.
but I certainly it enriches your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like with each class, each professor,
Mm-hmm.
the more I engaged, the
Mm-hmm.
more I felt.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's probably a reason why I'm always a proponent of face-to-face, in-person instruction. Nothing against online instruction. I think it's great, And, there are ways, that we add more of a personal element to our online instruction as well. But no, one of the reasons why I enjoy in-person face-to-face instruction, because, it's actually what's happening is that your instructor is pouring into your life, pouring from their years of experience and study and life experiences, and knowledge, Yeah, and that's what I love about teaching, because we get to pour into and make a deposit into bright minds, for the future. It's our way of really leaving a legacy,
Yeah.
In the world in which we live.
And you some of that transmission
Mm-hmm.
is seeing the teacher show up when they're not feeling well.
Yes.
Seeing the teacher
Yes.
make a mistake and then get back on track.
Sure.
Seeing the teacher
Yeah.
interact with difficult subject matter along with a difficult student.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are things that are experiences.
Right. Right.
I don't care what tactic you have.
Right.
If you're not there to feel the emotion, if you're not there to see the sweat drip,
right.
If you're not there, like you miss out on so much more. So
yeah, that's true.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, that's true.
And the last question I have for you.
Okay.
What are you optimistic about?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, what am I optimistic about? Oh, I'm thinking it down. That's a good question right there, man. Oh man, I am optimistic. I'm just a person of hope, and I'm optimistic and hopeful that if we just commit ourselves to doing what is right, and not giving up on life, that I'm hopeful and optimistic that that we will persevere, that Paul in scripture, he says, fight the good fight of faith, and man, we just have to stay hopeful. But not only, I believe that what hope does is that hope motivates us to keep doing that which we have control over. So we don't have control over everything in life, and we definitely don't have control over other people. The only thing and person that we have control over is ourselves. So as long as we stay filled with hope, and love, okay, then you know what? Hey man, we can overcome anything, any tragedy that we encounter. We can overcome any trial or circumstance that, we're confronted with. You see what I'm saying? Because what hope does is hope says, okay, looks at the problem and it says, okay, let's find a solution.
Yeah.
See, that's hope. You know what I'm saying? So for me, man, just, I'm looking forward to continuing to do more of what I've been doing, and getting better at it. That's my thing, man. I just want to get better at it. You know what I'm saying? And, and make it a point to, enjoy more of life also, if that makes sense. But, as I've told all of you in class, that, I enjoy what I'm doing. When I'm here doing it, I am not at work. I am doing what I was created to do. And when I'm here lecturing, man, I'm like a fish in water. And so I'm just having a good time, And that's contrasted to millions of people in the world who go to jobs every day, jobs that they can't stand, jobs that they hate, and they're like a fish suffocating out of water. Exactly. Yeah. And so, No, man, and that's what helps me stay hopeful. Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
To all our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got a little glimpse of what I got a chance to experience on a daily basis from Dr. Howard. And hopefully, in the future, we get them back again sometime, maybe those 10 Commandments, or sign up for his course. With Dr. Howard, it's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
And I'm super grateful
Appreciate
and
it.
very honored that you made the time to do this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It was my honor, really.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much. All right. Okay.